This show is not intended for the politically correct or the close-minded. Enter at the risk of opening your eyes. You have been warned.
Why does the media attack an issue? To get primetime ratings?
In my line of work, you got to keep repeating things over and over and over again for the truth to sink in.
The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
A moment comes when we step out from the old to the new, and when the soul of a nation, long suppressed, finds utterance.
To kind of catapult the propaganda.
You are listening to Open Eyes with your host, Ira Robinson. From the normal to the paranormal, from government cover-ups to the depths of our consciousness, we aim to explore all things. From the dawn of prehistory to current events, no topic is forbidden and nothing remains hidden.
No more secrets.
Open your eyes and open your mind to the fact that life as we know it is not as we have been taught. Join us at latenightinthemidlands.com or openeyesnetwork.com as we take this brief journey through the depths of the cosmos and explore what it really means to be human.
Many peoples have sacrificed their liberties, only to learn to their sorrow that deceit and mockery, poverty and tyranny are their reward.
Whether you're online or offline, intercontinental or intergalactic, hello and welcome to Open Eyes. It is Friday. It is April 30th, I believe it is. I don't remember the day. You guys know me. I'm never good with dates. And we are live tonight. You guys can call in tonight if you want to after our first break. We do have a guest joining us tonight, and I have been so looking forward to bringing this gentleman on with us. Boy, oh boy, it's been a little bit of a trial to get him on because we've had so many weird errors in communication happening. But it happens. So we've finally gotten him on. We're finally live with him, and we are live and on the air on many different locations now. As you guys are well aware, we have started live streaming this week to YouTube. So we're not only available at lnmradionetwork.com on the live stream there, we're also at openeyesnetwork.com, our own website. You guys can join in the chat rooms on those two websites. They're both the same chat room. If you guys go to one, you can get into the same chat room that's on both websites. Just click on the chat and listen buttons up at the top of the page. They're big, they're blinking, you can't miss it. In fact, during the break, I show you exactly how to get to them as well. You can also now listen to us live on YouTube. We are streaming to my YouTube channel at youtube.com/C/Open Eyes Network. And if you add /live to the end of that link, you guys can get right into where the stream is happening, and you guys can take part of it there. You can see me, you can see all the guest information, all the good stuff that's there. Hopefully you guys are enjoying that as much as we are. So let me bring the guest with us tonight. We have tonight M. Don Schorn. Now, M. Don Schorn is the author of many books. He has a fascinating set of theories that I just love listening to. And, we can bring him right on in. So, Don, hello. Are you there with us?
I sure am. Hi, Ira. It's an honor to be on your program. Thanks for the opportunity.
I am so glad to have you here with us tonight. It's been a difficult trial getting you here because of the weird bugs in communication we had.
The emails do not always cooperate, it seems.
It seems that way. I don't know what goes on with it, but hey, it works and you're here with us, and I'm just so grateful to have you here. So why don't you start off telling the listeners a little bit about your background, a little bit about yourself, and we can just take things from there.
Okay. My early work as an auto mechanic during high school led to my choice of professions as a mechanical engineer. I later combined my passion for cars with a new interest in plastics. While I was working for several thermoplastic molding companies, supplying component parts to the automotive industry. During those years, I continued my postgraduate education with a curriculum in plastics technology and individual course study in various technical and managerial programs. Years later, utilizing my plastics and manufacturing background, I then joined a Detroit manufacturer's representative firm as a product development specialist. Working with various OEM automotive divisions, I assisted in finalizing product specifications, part designs, ISO quality criterion and certifications, along with direct marketing and sales efforts. After a successful professional career spanning more than 27 years, I retired early at the beginning of 1995 to pursue a second career in writing. Since then, I have studied cosmology, paleoanthropology, geology, and archaeology, along with extensive analysis of ancient records and sacred texts. Those studies led to the completion of 6 books as of this date, including my series collectively known as the Journals of the Ancient Ones, which introduces my Elder Gods theory. My other nonfiction work, Reincarnation, Stepping Stones of Life, is an examination of the reincarnation concept and its implementation as a way of life. My only fictional work is Emerging Dawn, a novel that details a near-future global search for ancient artifacts connected with the Mayan end-time prophecy. That's pretty much it in a nutshell, so to speak, Ira.
I heard you on another show. I think it was on The Secret Teachings with Ryan Gable, which you guys can find the archives at thesecretteachings.info. You were talking about the reincarnation book the last time that you were on there, and I thought that it was really fascinating. I loved the concepts that you were talking about in that book. It was really interesting to me.
It's I was actually surprised myself, Ira, that there is such a direct connection with the reincarnation belief and ancient aliens. In my studies of ancient texts and sacred records and so forth, I always was on the lookout for what was the earliest religious thought or spiritual thought, things along that line. What is the true concept of religion on this planet? And surprisingly, what came across from the oldest, again, sacred records and ancient texts that I could, I've been able to peruse, the belief in reincarnation was that initial spiritual belief. So it, like I said, it actually did surprise me that there was a tie-in between my two major interests, the ancient alien theme and of course, reincarnation.
Yeah, it's really weird how the link actually does seem to fit absolutely perfectly with the whole thing. I was very fascinated by it when I heard you explaining it. Now, we're not really going to get into the reincarnation thing tonight, maybe, but I at least wanted to bring it up because that is your newest work, right?
Well, actually, it was my first work.
Oh, really?
I started that back in 87, 88, as a matter of fact, just trying to put my thoughts to paper, and that led over the years into a very rough manuscript. And because of the, if you will, study into reincarnation and the its elements, its origins and so forth, that led me to a lot of past life research and so forth, which I don't necessarily buy to the extent that it's the popular belief that everyone shares.
Right.
But it did lead to ancient Egypt, as an example, and Atlantis. The mythology associated with really both of those cultures, and that then that was the next step on to the really a connection with the ancient aliens. So it again, overall, it did surprise me. But actually, the reincarnation was the first love of my life, if you would, as far as a subject for writing. And it was not my first book, though. You're correct there. It actually was my the fourth book that was published was the reincarnation book. Although, like I said, it actually started its existence back in '87 and '88.
I gotcha. Yeah, it's kind of similar to the Stephen King timeline where he wrote the Dark Tower series. He actually started writing that about 50 years ago almost, and yet it was only first published, like 30 years later. It's kind of one of those things. It's kind of like the weird opuses like that. They tend to be like that. Okay, well, let's get into the Elder Gods. What are the Elder Gods, and where does the storyline begin with all of this?
Well, if I could impose on you and your audience give me about 5, 6, 7 minutes maybe.
You bet.
Let me try to do a quick rundown or summary of what the Elder Gods theory is. And then we can kind of go from there, Ira.
Absolutely. Sounds great.
All right. Due to the many known flaws and inconsistencies associated with our current explanation of Earth's development and humankind's origins, I formulated an intriguing and controversial hypothesis, my Elder Gods theory, to better explain our planet's remote past and humanity's emergence. This unique theory proposes that interventions by two very different groups of extraterrestrial beings directly influenced Earth's early history and the development of human life, perhaps in part even at the direction or intent of a greater master plan by the Creator. The first group of extraterrestrials evolved during the early primordial period of our universe, long before the formation of our own solar system and Earth. After nearly self-destructing once they achieved cultural advancements, they overcame their self-destructive, self-centered ways and gained enlightenment and great wisdom. Over the ensuing billion years, they eventually met 6 additional unrelated species of like-minded ancient aliens from distant worlds that had also survived similar self-destructive early beginnings. After comparing experiences from their explorations, those 7 different alien species concluded that most, if not all, young species would eventually self-destruct without extraneous intervention to stop that. So to avert such an outcome, they formed an alliance, those 7 alien early race species, if you will. They formed an alliance known as the Cosmic Order. They became united under common mutual interests, fundamental convictions, and philosophical principles, and pledged to guide and assist younger emerging worlds they would encounter throughout the cosmos. They became known as the Ancient Ones to inhabitants of those infant worlds and represent the first of the 2 groups of extraterrestrial beings previously mentioned. After numerous billions of years, representatives from that Cosmic Order coalition eventually traveled to our solar system, where life was first developing on a neighboring planet beyond Earth, long before humans existed on our world. Contact was made with that emerging human-like race, and with the help of the Ancient Ones, they became a very successful advanced civilization. There is simply insufficient data available to determine which outer planet was their home world within our solar system, but the most likely candidates are either Mars or Maldek. Maldek was the planet that once occupied the 5th orbit from our sun, which now contains the asteroid belt remnants. It was a much later planetary blunder by that same human-like outer planet race around 700,000 BC that destroyed Meldick, creating the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. That started a downward spiral for that outer planet human-like race, with that species eventually becoming a contributing factor in the genetic lineage of earthly humankind, as well as eventually undergoing a later division of its own race into either a good or bad faction or group. Still later, the dissenting or bad faction of that outer planet ancestral species eventually arrived on Earth around 5250 BC, becoming the younger second group of extraterrestrials I previously mentioned. They soon altered the direction of human progress the ancient ones had established for our planet, causing great turmoil and eventual world war, resulting in the temporary exile of the ancient ones from Earth. That younger human-like race then became instrumental in many of Earth's misfortunes, hardships, and stagnation that emerged after 3150 BC, and have continued their now hidden behind-the-scenes manipulation of many world events. Evidence found within Earth's archaic record clearly indicates marked differences between these two groups of extraterrestrial beings. The older original group, the ancient ones, eventually became known on Earth in mythological records as the elder gods. To answer your actual original question, seems like days ago by now, during much later archaic times. Those same records, further claim that the elder gods were eventually displaced by the younger gods that were also mentioned in those same texts. And those younger gods were the descendants of the human-like beings from that outer planet beyond Earth. Analysis of these two groups of ancient aliens is revealed throughout my book series, which again is collectively known as the Journals of the Ancient Ones. Again, that's kind of the theory of the two ancient alien groups in a nutshell, Ira.
So out of what you just said, I did have a couple of questions that popped up into my head basically while you were saying all of that. And one of them is, out of the things that you said, this sounds actually really familiar to the old biblical story of the good angels, bad angels, the fallen angels, and the interactions with human beings. Is maybe that storyline of things derived from what you found as this elder gods theory? Is that possible?
It is, but probably not the same myth or story or biblical parable that you might be thinking of. The fall of the angels, the war in the heavens, if you will, where Lucifer was defeated by the archangels, and Lucifer took 1/3 of the overall angels from heaven with him to start his own reign, actually is a direct description of, and I'm throwing a curve at you and your audience at this point by bringing up an 8th species of first beings instead of the 7 that created the cosmic order coalition of the ancient ones. And that 8th first being species is known throughout the ancient records and sacred texts as the destroyers.
I see. Okay.
And if you will, the destroyers would equate with Lucifer, as well as the ancient ones then being equated to the 7 archangels led by Gabriel that defeated Lucifer in that ancient war between the angels, or the war in heaven. And the destroyers also, from all of the textual context from ancient records, indicate that the destroyers, although one of 8 original first species that survived their own self-destruction during the primordial period of the early universe, they also represent roughly 1/3 of all of those our original first being species. So it appears as though that original story was modified from the ancient ones and destroyers to be the archangels in heaven fighting Lucifer, the 8th archangel, if you will, that rebelled against God and was then defeated by the other 7 archangels and their angels that were led by those 7 archangels.
I see. Okay, so it's not really surprising that things would get derived in that kind of a fashion. I mean, it's sort of like the game of telephone. When you have a deep oral history being told, it's pretty easy to get things a little mixed up and weirdly confused, especially when you take into account, scientists, for instance, they found that about 12,000 or so years ago in our timeline of things, there was a big cataclysm that occurred, and humanity basically ended up being diminished down to about 5,000 people. And all of the 7+ billion people that we have on the planet right now are descendants of those 5,000 people. So, it's kind of no wonder that things would get lost and confused, basically.
Precisely the case, Ira. And not only the telephone analogy that you brought up, which is excellent, where a story transferred from person to person is going to change immensely by the 12th or 14th person once it's relayed to them. There was also a very deliberate plan put in place by the younger group of ancient aliens that I referred to demonize the ancient ones, the elder gods, if you will, for a specific purpose and reason. So it was really kind of a dual-fold attack, if you will, on the truth or on the original story, which would eventually become distorted and redacted, changed, updated, etc.
And then we toss in all the other mythologies that get associated with all of the stuff, and it all gets messed up.
It really does. Exactly.
Well, one of the thing, otherwise question that I had as far as what you were discussing there towards the beginning of things is, so these first beings, they actually came from a different galaxy altogether. Is that correct?
It would appear that way. The Milky Way galaxy is mostly unlikely to be the home world of any of the 7 different species.
Well, one thing, I don't mean to interrupt you too much here, but one thing that comes to my mind with all of this too is we've now found scientifically, again, scientists have through their different investigations that they're doing, they're actually now thinking that we didn't actually originate in the Milky Way galaxy. We're actually part of the Scorpio galaxy that has essentially now been eaten by the Milky Way galaxy. So we actually originated in a different galaxy altogether ourselves.
That an excellent point, Ira. The matter of fact, the oldest remnants of the Milky Way galaxy go back to roughly 10.5 billion years old, and those remnants are believed to be portions of a prior destroyed galaxy that the Milky Way galaxy merely attracted and, if you will, overtook it then, and becoming a part of the present Milky Way galaxy. So there is much credence into that belief, but it is unknown completely where the 7 home worlds of these non-related, very different 7 first being species came from. They may have all come from a single galaxy, or they may each have come from 7 different distinct galaxies. There's nothing in the ancient text that I've ever run across that would actually indicate if which could possibly be those home worlds, or if indeed those home worlds may no longer even exist in our time.
Right. You think about time-wise, this was many, many, many years ago. So it's very possible that through the passage of time, those planets may have, eroded. Their suns may have died. There may be no remnants of them in any way at this point.
Exactly the case, Ira. That's it in a nutshell.
This is really fascinating. We're going to go ahead and hit a break here real fast, Don. And then when we come back, we can get into the more specifics of the storyline. How's that sound to you?
Oh, excellent.
Now,
Looking
your website,
forward to that, Ira.
For those that want to check him out, the website is schornmd.wix.com. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so if you guys want to go and take a look at the website while we take the break here, go for it. Your books are for sale through the website, right?
They are.
Okay, great. So if you guys want to pick up the books through his website, go for it. They're excellent. I love the story again that's being told with this whole thing, and we're going to get into more specifics when we come back. So if you guys want to call in when we come back from the break, you can do so. The number is 260-494-3937. Our Skype line is JDA Film, and the chat room, of course, at lnmradionetwork.com, openeyesnetwork.com, or you can join us on youtube.com as well, youtube.com/C/openeyesnetwork. If you guys do try to do chatting, though, on YouTube, I'll warn you, I'm blind. The whiteness of YouTube really it overpowers my eyesight, and I have a very difficult time reading it. So if you do try to chat on YouTube, bear in mind I might not be able to see it very well, and I might not respond right away. So the best way, chat-wise, to ask questions for the guest or to speak to me or get involved in the community would be to go there to lnmradionetwork.com. We'll be back in just a few minutes, folks. Ben Franklin said, "If you do the same thing tomorrow as you did today, you're going to get the same tomorrow as you got today." Changing the world starts with you, and changing you starts with changing the way you think. Late Night in the Midlands can help. Listen to all of our shows at latenightinthemidlands.com, because things really do need to change.
LNM fans and late-nighters around the world, have you captured something on that photo or video of yours? Send in your photos and videos of ghosts, orbs, UFOs, Planet X, or just about anything content-related by submitting them to the Late Night in the Midlands Facebook group or fan page, or you can submit them on Twitter using hashtag LNM Radio. And if you would rather stay anonymous, then email them to us at mv@latenightinthemidlands.com. We will share them at our new fan page on the LNM website and may even ask you to come on air a few minutes and tell us about your photo or video. Late Night in the Midlands. We're building a bridge to the truth and beyond.
The L&M Radio Network and Late Night in the Midlands depends on you, the listener. Without you, there would be no us. So help us continue to bring you the best guests with the best information and subscribe today. Information on becoming an L&M subscriber can be found at the top of LateNightInTheMidlands.com. Just click the About Subscriptions tab and become part of the family while helping the truth stay alive. And while you're at it, maybe subscriptions aren't for you. A one-time donation helps as well. Click that donate button on the right side of LateNightInTheMidlands.com and help us help you.
How can we so arrogantly believe that we are at the very cutting edge of human and social evolution? How can we truly understand ourselves when we dilute our very nature with distractions that only seem to entertain rather than educate the human brain and mind? If you wish to explore these concepts and much more, you can tune into The Secret Teachings, Sundays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the L&M Radio Network. You can also download and listen to past episodes for free by visiting our website, www.thesecretteachings.info. Remember that the highest wisdom is silent fact, and that wisdom is not bestowed, it is achieved.
Welcome back to Open Eyes. My name is Ira Robinson, and I want to thank you guys for sticking around through that break with us. For those of you that are on the YouTube stream, you probably noticed that there's silence during the breaks a little bit, but it's kind of the way that we have to do things. YouTube gets a little finicky when it comes to any kind of music being done, and it's annoying. So I just go ahead and mute that side of things until the break is done. But anyways, we are back, and tonight I'm being joined by a special guest, M. Don Schorn. Don is the author of many books regarding the Elder Gods theory, as well as other topics as well. So we want to go ahead and bring him right back in. If you guys want to call in tonight, you can do so. We are live. The phone number is 260-494-3937. Our Skype line is JDA Film, and you can also reach us, as always, in the chat room at lnmradionetwork.com, openeyesnetwork.com. While you're over at lnmnetwork.com, please subscribe and donate to help keep us on the air. It's so essential for you guys to do that kind of stuff. We are listener supported, and we do need your help. So, Don, we are back. Hello.
Hi, Ira.
Thanks for sticking around there.
Oh, no problem.
So before we took the break, you were kind of getting into the topic of the Elder Gods theory and some of the beginning stages of it. I'd like you to go ahead and take as much time as you want to get out the storyline as much as you'd like to.
All right, and please interrupt at any time, Ira, if additional clarification or questions might arise.
Sure will. Yeah.
I guess probably the best bet would be to really focus on the intent of the ancient ones traveling around the galaxy or galaxies from galaxy to galaxy with the intent of guiding and assisting younger emerging races to become civilized cultures and down the road, if you will, commercial world species where they can deal with other alien planets and cultures themselves. It's simply impossible to know when the ancient ones first came to our solar system, but remember that our solar system formed 9 billion years after the formation of the universe from the Big Bang event. So they had been around for a long time prior to our solar system even being formed. By all indications, the first life within our solar system happened or occurred on that outer planet that I had mentioned before, be it either Mars or Maldek. It would be typical that any outer planet would coalesce prior to any inner planet because of the distance then from the sun, allowing it for a quicker cool-off and solidification. In the case of Maldek specifically, again, if that might be the home world of the outer planet species or not, Maldek could be as much as 300 million years older, and by saying that, I mean it coalesced and had its crustal topography formed as much as 300 million years before Earth because of its greater distance from the sun, allowing it to cool off quicker. In any case, the ancient ones certainly were interested in all of the planets within our solar system, but would gravitate, needless to say, towards that planet with the first life, and that was the outer planet I keep mentioning with that human-like life. More than likely, they had interacted with that human-like outer planet species for many, many millennia until they became a very modern, advanced civilization and culture. And except for the blunder that they were involved with in conjunction with Maldek, the planet, which ended up destroying Maldek, like I said earlier, in 700,000 BC, they would have remained on their home planet, been a much more advanced species than anything on Earth, and gone about the normal progression with the help of the ancient ones. Unfortunately, that was not the case.
That reminds me. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you too much, but I was just going to say that reminds me of something that I usually talk about on my shows, is this idea of other civilizations that are out there in the universe that may be way, way far advanced from what human beings are here on the planet today, because maybe their planets have never had any kind of cataclysms that have interrupted their civilization.
Well, certainly the 7 species of ancient ones are the most advanced species in the entire universe. There can be no question about that,
right? According
to all the ancient texts. But you're right. There's has to be a smattering of different levels of advancement, along with failures. In the 9 billion years before Earth and our solar system even formed.
Right.
So certainly there are older species out there, not as old as the first beings or the ancient ones, but certainly advanced cultures out there that we'll probably never know of.
Now, did these ancient ones, did they actually seed the universe with life, or did they just go to find life that had already emerged on these other planets? Or was it both? Okay.
And again, ancient texts talk about a universal spore of life, if you will. And there's there can be very little, there's certainly evidence that suggests that a universal spore or germ of life apparently existed or formed shortly after the Big Bang birth of our cosmos, probably within the first several 2 or 3 billion years of that infant universe, after the earliest stars and planets first coalesced. And those spores could be considered generic in their nature, in a manner similar to the elementary particles of quarks and leptons that form the underlying basis for all of our elements. And those spores could drift throughout space on solar winds, or be transported on exploded debris from celestial bodies or comets, and spread, throughout the universe. And by the environment upon a successful planet they might land on, different forms of life would evolve because of the different environmental conditions, and especially over billions and billions of years with mutations and evolution and so forth. That universal spore could make insect-like people or reptilian-type species, any number of different races, if you will, could come from that same common spore. Now, over and above that, once the ancient ones reached their high level of advancement and enlightenment, there are all sorts of indications in numerous ancient records and texts indicating that they did indeed help spread that same universal spore to select planets that they might run across. So it was probably both, the intent by the Creator with the Big Bang to not only create matter from the from forming the elementary particles of quarks and leptons, but also forming this universal spore, if you will, as a direct result of the Big Bang event.
Very fascinating. I've always said that for me, when I look at DNA and the different interactions that have happened with it, I think that DNA, there's something with DNA that it kind of has programmed into it all possibilities of different forms of life depending on the environment that the DNA has found itself in. And that, so like if the environment is, certain temperatures, certain atmospheric conditions, so on and so forth, then it's going to be these type of life forms will be possible. And then if it's, another set of circumstances, then it's a different set of life forms are possible, and that they basically grow and evolve from there. So it kind of fits right into what you're saying, I think.
That certainly seems to be the case, Ira. And I don't claim to be a geneticist, but
right.
I don't think we have even scratched the surface yet as far as the genome and what the DNA molecule really can or is capable of, and with certain genes shutting off or turning themselves on, it's a miraculous formula, if you will, that the DNA molecule possesses.
Absolutely. And what comes to my mind with what you're saying with the different spores that could travel through space and that sort of thing, I totally believe that. I've, again, kind of had that as a concept in my mind for many years, especially confirmed when they discovered on the ISS barnacles and stuff growing on the side of the ISS. And this is, in outer space where nothing supposedly can live, and yet these things are flourishing right on the side of something that's right there in outer space. So
exactly. And that was a very successful experiment done by the ISS. The universal spore concept, by the way, has some very notable scientists over the years agreeing with that concept, such as astrophysicist Sir Fred Hoyle, Dr. Francis Crick of DNA fame, the discoverer of DNA in 1953, and even physicist Lord Kelvin, the Kelvin temperature scale. All of them believed in panspermia, as they called it,
right?
The universal spores, as related in the ancient texts that I've run across.
Right, exactly. Okay, so didn't mean to interrupt too much with everything, but
no problem. In any case, everything seemed to change. This model outer planet human-like species, which needed very little guidance at that time, and I'm talking the time frame 700,000 BC, because of their advanced culture, their advanced nature, their model behavior, if you will, through all the help the ancient ones had given them over the millennia that they had been involved with them. In either case, everything changed with the destruction of Maldek around 700,000 BC. And that required a direct intervention then by the ancient ones to help the very few survivors that were left of that outer planet human-like species to continue life, to continue existence as a species. The ancient ones created temporary bases on Mars, which was also severely damaged by the destruction of Maldek at that same time, and also created bases on Earth's moon. The ancient ones did not move that outer planet human-like species temporarily to Earth at that time, because Earth was in the midst of the most severe, as a matter of fact, glaciation of the 4 glaciations of our current or last ice age, and that was the Guntz ice cover at the time. So Earth was kind of off limits, so to speak. So shelters were constructed for the few survivors on our moon, as well as on Mars, and millennia again after millennia. The outer planet species continued to suffer, lose numbers. Their birth to death ratio continued to decline, and they were not able to replace their species. And it became obvious to the ancient ones that the species was going to go extinct without some sort of direct intervention, again, by the ancient ones. So perhaps as early as 500,000 BC, but certainly by 400,000 BC, the ancient ones undertook a genetic engineering of a recombinant species that would be a dual habitable species of an Earth type creature compatible with Earth, as well as the outer planet species that would be compatible with Mars as well as Earth.
Which falls right into things that I've said over the years too, which is that the human race that we see here now, us, we were not originally here. This was not the original species, I think, that was intended to be the sentient species on this planet. That somewhere along the line we had been interfered with, and that the original species may actually have been what we would now refer to as maybe the Bigfoot species. That was what was originally intended to be the sentient species here on the planet, but something interfered.
Perhaps something along that line, anyway, Ira, and I like exactly what you said about the intervention. Something extraneous to our planet appears to have taken place from ape man to actual human, our human species.
Yep, absolutely.
And it was, like I said earlier, a recombinant, a dual habitable species that the ancient ones intended to create, and hence the outer planet human-like species, after the genetic engineering work that went over a course of at least 250, 300,000 years, with many different candidates, many different failures, a few successes, but not quite to the level that that pleased the ancient ones. The outer planet human-like species eventually changed from what their ancestors were, as well as what normal evolution would have been on Earth, from ape man to Homo erectus, if you will, to Pithecanthropus, the then most modern or current ancestor, if you will, of humankind. That level of Homo erectus in that, let's say, 400,000 BC range was Pithecanthropus, better known as Jaffa man, Heidelberg man, Peking man. That was the base used with the introduction and combination of the outer planet human-like species that eventually, after many, many trial and errors, eventually produced Cro-Magnon man, our true ancestor. And that happened, Cro-Magnon, the successful version of Cro-Magnon happened around 43,000 BC. And they were then refined over that ensuing period with the emergence of us, truly modern man, or Homo sapiens sapiens, around 11,600 BC.
Which goes right into what I was saying earlier with the weird cataclysm or some kind of event that happened, that there were only 5,000 of us that now we are all descended from.
And that was a mere 10,000 years after a 1,000 years after that successful updating, if you will, of Cro-Magnon in the form of us, truly modern man, around 11,600 BC. And that event you keep referring to, Ira, according to at least the Elder Gods theory, was the Great Flood,
Gotcha.
The so-called biblical Great Flood, which actually didn't happen the way the Bible says it did.
Right, yeah.
But that occurred somewhere around 10,500 BC, and is best known from the destruction that it caused, the extinction event known as the Pleistocene extinction, the extinction of the woolly mammoth, the mastodon, the saber-toothed tiger, the giant cave bear, all of those species that went extinct at that time. And that was really the next major turning point, as a matter of fact, Ira, in the association with the outer planet human-like species and the now finally created human species of Earth in the form of, again, truly modern man, Homo sapiens sapien, us. And the ancient ones, to preserve all of their work that they had done and preserve what was left of planet Earth, collected DNA samples of plant life, plant and animal life on Earth before the flood. They were aware that the situation, the confluence of events, celestial events, were such that they could predict a massive global catastrophe in the form of the Great Flood.
That wouldn't be shocking considering the technology that they had available.
Precisely the case. Exactly, Ira. So they did take all of, what was left, all of the good of Earth, if you will, and exited Earth with a few live samples, a few live specimens of truly modern man, and went to the olden base on our moon, on Earth's moon, to write out the effects from the Great Flood. During that time, the outer planet human-like species had petitioned the ancient ones to merely move to become immigrants, if you will, and be relocated to Earth and become the dominant species. And for whatever reason, and more than likely it was the mandates of the cosmic order that didn't allow such an off-world species to take over a world that had its own species developing. It was rejected in any case by the ancient ones, and that caused a schism in the outer planet human-like species. That faction, that good and bad faction that I referred to earlier in the general description of the theory.
Right. Okay, not to interrupt too much, but we did have a question come in about the moon, and I figured since you mentioned the moon, we could go ahead and hit that real fast if you don't mind.
Terrific.
Okay, so Farrell in the chat room was wondering what your thoughts are as far as, is the moon an artificial necessity, like a necessary object that's there, or is it just a natural phenomenon?
I do believe it's a natural formation made at the same time from the expelled material from our star when it left its nursery, its stellar nebula, and all of that excess material then spun off from the planet from the sun once it emerged from its nursery, if you will, its nebula. Then created the planets as well as the satellites. I do believe that our moon is a natural satellite, but I do also believe that there are major hollow chambers, voids, caverns, whatever one wants to call the hollow aspect of the moon.
So a natural phenomenon that's been used artificially.
Well, to a degree, yes. That's probably the best way of putting it, Ira. And again, there's so little information known about the moon that it is really difficult to be more concise.
Right. Okay, so we're getting a call coming in, and actually it's going to be a familiar voice to you. It's Ryan Gable, who's the host of The Secret Teachings over at thesecretteachings.info, for those of you that would like to check out his shows. They're excellent. Hello, Ryan.
Hey, Ira. Hey, Don. How are you guys
doing?
Well,
hi, Ryan. Good to hear from you.
Good to hear you guys, and good to see you, Ira. I like the video cast that you have going.
Thank you. I'm really excited to bring it to everybody.
It is. You're taking it. You've almost got an Alex Jones thing going on, I guess.
Oh, indeed. That's awesome.
That's why you should bang your hands on the desk and get a bullhorn. But I'm enjoying the show tonight. And,
Thank you.
I love that you can interview Don because you can bring out a whole other side of his information that we don't get to on my program. I had a question, I had a thought, but since the other listener had asked about the moon, I thought I'd throw another curveball at you, Don, and ask if you've ever heard about not only a artificial moon of Earth, but also an artificial moon of Mars as well. Have you ever heard that, and do you have any thoughts on it?
Well, the two moons, the very, very small, tiny moons of Mars, more than likely were captured were captured chunks, or could well be captured chunks from the destruction of Maldek, from the asteroid belt planet. In other words, there's a theory that the largest, and I don't remember if it's Deimos or Phoebos or whatever in the heck. Memory is Swiss cheese at my age, but the largest moon supposedly helped regulate Mars during that cataclysmic destruction of Maldek. So it's kind of a conflicting basis, where it was there originally, but it seems like they're both too small to be natural original satellites of Mars. But as far as being artificial, I've not run into that, but certainly, again, the largest is perhaps has some very large caverns, craters, hollow aspects to it, where supposedly there have been reports of large ships, spaceships, entering those caverns that have been filmed by some of the Martian probes and so forth. Probably not really giving you a very detailed or concise answer on that, Ryan.
No, it's just a thought, and I mean, even you could expand on that. Have you seen the remote viewing of Courtney Brown about Mars? And I think you've mentioned him in one of your books or something similar to that. I don't recall exactly. I read so much, but
I did. He was referenced in I'm thinking it was the second book, Legacy of the Elder Gods. But again, Swiss cheese memory may not be quite accurate on that. But I'm aware of Courtney Brown's work with the Farsight Institute and his remote viewing prowess.
Well, another question I had that we never really expanded on greatly on my show was the cosmic, kind of like a cosmic code. And maybe for anybody who hasn't read or they're not familiar with your work, you've sort of pieced that together out of ancient texts. Am I correct with that analysis?
You're talking about the cosmic order?
Yes, the cosmic order.
Yes. That mostly from Sanskrit text, and perhaps the best source there was the Book of Jan. Gets into pretty good detail on the cosmic order itself. That we could probably do an entire program, as a matter of fact, on the cosmic order. That was set up again originally to stop that self-destructive nature that seemed inherent during the early universe, where virtually civilization, world after world, self-destructed due to their self-centered ways and not thinking of all of the consequences associated with their actions. And that's really what caused the 7 original first being species to form their coalition, was to stop that, not so much as an altruistic program per se, but as a self-preservation mode, figuring if they can stop the destruction throughout the universe with all of these younger emerging worlds and their cultures advancing and finally blowing themselves up and taking neighboring worlds and even solar systems and perhaps even galaxies with them in their destruction, their lives would be eventually at risk. Their home worlds would be at risk. So this was a lot in self-preservation to start with, and that really was the original intent of the cosmic order.
I have one last question for you, and I'll let you guys go tonight. I've been enjoying the show, and I was just thinking, because there's always the dichotomy, the polarity when people argue creationism or evolution. And there's few of us who see down the middle path or can give a little credibility to both and don't just harbor on one idea and that's it. But somebody had said to me the other day something about evolution or creation, and I said, well, it'd be very unlikely, even if humans evolved without any type of divine spark on planet Earth, and that would be very unlikely by itself. But then prior to humans, then you would have had another super intelligent species dinosaurs, let's say, that would have also, quote unquote, randomly evolved as well, and how that would be extremely highly unlikely if you were to strictly believe in evolution in a Darwinian sense. Where did dinosaurs come into your thoughts?
The concept, I'll preface the answer first, Ryan, if I may. The concept of a spontaneous life formation by mixing chemicals and having some external energy source, such as lightning striking, if you will, a pool, a primordial pool of the right material and lightning striking it and so forth, was proven by Sir Fred Hoyle, astrophysicist Hoyle, to be impossible using supercomputer modeling and so forth. And in any case, however one looks at the spontaneous emergence of life or the emergence of life period, you have to go back to that first ever life somewhere, shortly after the Big Bang event. And the only possible source, in my opinion, is the Creator.
Well, Don, one of the things that I've run across scientifically is this concept of heat combined with pressure and some kind of water in an atmosphere actually spontaneously causes DNA to be created. Have you run across that or heard about that?
I have not.
Okay, so there was a series of experiments that was done by some Russian scientists where they took sand and they superheated it to the point that, superheated, and nothing possibly could have existed after this heating process. Then they put it into a vacuum. They put distilled water in with it, and then they superheated both of those together inside of this vacuum. And when the temperature cooled back down again, they saw that there was a foamy substance that was on top of the water that was left on top of this sand. And when they examined this foam closer, they realized that there were there was critters that was in there. It was DNA that was in there. So this idea of sand or some kind of a rocky kind of silica material combined with this superheat, combined with the water, combined with the pressure, is the same sort of circumstances that happen when, for instance, an asteroid strikes into a planet and goes through its atmosphere. It's almost the same kind of process that happens. So perhaps in that process, that might be a method that the Creator has put into place as a way to cause DNA to spontaneously appear on that planetoid, from that point forward.
That's an interesting theory. It really is. I'm intrigued by that. I go back, though, to that universal spore concept where we can't see a quark or a lepton within a particular structure within an atom, either an electron or a proton or a neutron. But it's the underlying element is still there, and perhaps one of those grains of sand or several of those grains of sand, even though they were nuked, so to speak, really still had an internal core of one of those universal spores.
Right, could be.
Spores of life.
Could absolutely be, yep.
And to get back then to the question on dinosaurs for Ryan, that is such an unusual occurrence. We can go back from memory about 320, perhaps 330 million years ago for the first emergence of dinosaurs. And I think that was kind of a, let me preface the thought on dinosaurs to the Cambrian explosion, if you will, around 600,000, 590,000, 600 or 590 million years ago, where prior to that, for the most part, all we had was 3 billion years of single-cell life. and all of a sudden we have true life on our planet. I do believe that was terraformed. I do believe that was seeded, and more than likely it was seeded by the ancient ones.
I think there's evidence to show that is the case. Yeah.
The concept of dinosaurs, I always thought, if one looks at Earth around that 320 million year ago period, Earth wasn't all that exciting and inviting. And it may have been a relocation of a nuisance species by the ancient ones to a planet that they where they couldn't hurt anything. So dinosaurs may not be indigenous, if you will, to Earth, but rather a relocated nuisance species elsewhere, probably outside of our own solar system, as a matter of fact.
That's interesting.
That may have been relocated to Earth to keep the species going, so to speak. Again, not wanting anything to go extinct, but also not wanting those creatures to bother the emergence of more advanced life later. So it's hard to say on dinosaurs, but I, in my opinion, I would think that they were either relocated, seeded, transplanted, however one wants to look at that. What are your thoughts on that, Ryan?
Well, I wanted to preface that with another question myself. Is that, you ever heard of a guy named Ronald Breslow?
Doesn't ring a bell. I'm sorry.
He's an American chemist, and I got a news article here I posted in the chat room. This was from April of 2012, so just about exactly 4 years ago. And this guy, an American chemist, he was suggesting that NASA's Kepler telescope, which was searching for quote-unquote habitable worlds, that this was maybe not a good idea. And in the article, I guess this was maybe a study done. I didn't read through the whole thing, actually, to be honest. But the headline said, "Welcome to our new lizard overlords. Study suggests alien worlds could be full of super intelligent dinosaurs." And they kind of prefaced them as alien, reptilian type, what do you call them, raptors or whatnot from Jurassic Park. Have you ever heard that or seen that? I thought that was an interesting thought as well.
I have not, but again, that makes an awful lot of sense. Regardless if dinosaurs are indigenous to Earth, they preceded humans by 320 million years, or if they're relocated from outside of our solar system, they still preceded humans by even more than that, if indeed they existed prior to their first appearance on Earth. So one would think that with natural evolution, natural mutations, changing environmental conditions on their home reptilian planet or dinosaur planet, that they would eventually evolve into a higher life form if they didn't eat each other, in the process, and, become an intelligent species. It's, I couldn't disagree with that.
Well, before anybody says that that's crazy and that these would be primitive in any sense, it's funny because there's tribes of humans today that still eat other humans, so yep. it wouldn't be very much more primitive. But I found it interesting also because humans, the embryo in the womb actually goes through a reptilian stage before it forms into a human.
I have heard that.
And as well, they have found that when the moment of conception happens, there's actually almost like it's a little flash of light that occurs at the moment that the sperm enters into the egg. So that's another interesting little thing to toss in there.
Ryan, I have a quick question for you in what you were just saying as far as the fierce cannibal aspects of certain species on our planet. Were you talking about politicians in Washington?
That was in the back of my mind, Don. It was in the back of my mind.
Mine too.
I couldn't let that one pass by. I'm sorry.
We do need to hit a break here, guys. But Ryan, do you want to stick around with us?
I'm actually going to have to go ahead and head out for right now. But I really appreciate you letting me come on. And Don, it was great talking to you again.
Well, it's always great talking with you, Ryan.
Ryan's show can be found here at lnmradionetwork.com and openeyesnetwork.com. The players played on both websites. Your show airs Saturdays at midnight and Sundays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And usually you're live, but you're not this week. But it's going to be a new show. It's a great show. I definitely recommend everybody goes and listens to his show as well. If you listen to mine, you're going to love his. So I guarantee it.
Thanks, Ira. Thanks, Don. You guys have a good night.
Take care, Ryan.
Thanks for calling in.
Bye-bye.
So, Don, we'll be back in just a few minutes. If you want to hang on with us, we'll let you take a break here for a minute, and we will be back as soon as the bills are paid.
Excellent.
Awesome. Stick around with us. You guys are listening to Open Eyes. My name is Ira Robinson. Tonight I'm joined by Don Schorn, Don Schorn. You can find his books on his website at schornmd.wix.com. He's also available on Amazon. You can find his books a lot of places. They're very fascinating. I highly recommend reading them, and we'll be back in just a few minutes. Have you been looking for answers? Have you been seeking the truth but can't seem to find it? Late Night in the Midlands has the answers for you. Whether you are interested in the paranormal, aliens and UFOs, alternative health information, or just a little hope and inspiration, we have a show for you. Late Night in the Midlands, The Secret Teachings, Open Eyes, Red Pill Reality Show, Brothers at Arms, and many more shows. All here on the LNM network for you to listen to at any time that you want. Everything is free to listen to, and though it is not required, we are listener supported, and all donations are deeply appreciated. You will not find shows like these in the mainstream media. Go to latenightinthemidlands.com to listen. The LNM network, where the truth has no fear. The Late Night in the Midlands radio network is deeply devoted to you, the listener. We feel it is necessary to bring you all of the information that you can use in your life. Each and every day you will find something to listen to here. And whether you come away from the shows informed, inspired, or entertained, it is our passion. We don't bow to corporations, and we don't have handlers to tell us what not to talk about. We bring you everything. Late Night in the Midlands, however, is fully listener-supported. We need your help to stay on the air and to make sure that we get the bills paid. We need your help to keep the truth alive. If you feel that you have gotten anything out of Late Night in the Midlands, we would appreciate your support. You can become a subscriber and help us out on a monthly basis, or if you'd like, a one-time donation is fully appreciated as well. Every year, the average household in America spends over $3,000 on entertainment alone. If you could help us with just a tiny fraction of that amount, you would make all of the difference. Go to latenightinthemidlands.com and click on the subscribe button. Thank you, and as always, keep yourself informed. Open Eyes Network now airs a live simulcast on YouTube. Our YouTube channel, youtube.com/C/Open Eyes Network, features not just our live content, but other videos as well, and is always active. So now you can tune in many different ways. Open Eyes Network shows air Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time live. Be sure to visit openeyesnetwork.com to find easy-to-use links to get to all of the places that you want to listen to our shows. And don't forget, all of our shows will now be archived as well on YouTube.
is that you get a universe inside of you. You know, you get a galaxy-sized object inside you that you can access. And there are the mountains, the rivers, the jungles, the dynastic families, the ruins, the planets, the works of art, the poetry, the sciences, the magics of millions upon millions upon millions of worlds. And this is apparently who we each are. We're a little bit of eternity sticking into three-dimensional space, and for some reason occupying time in a monkey body. But when you turn your eyes then inward, you discover the birthright, the existential facts out of which this particular existence emerged. In the past 100 years, as these super technologies have been developed in the West, the smashing of atoms, the invention of radio, television, computers, immunology, so forth and so on, data has been arriving about the practices of Aboriginal cultures all over the planet, that they dissolve ordinary realities, ordinary cultural values, through an interaction, a symbiosis, a relationship, chemistry. And in this domain of perturbed brain chemistry, the cultural operating system is wiped clean. And something older, even for these people, something older, more vitalistic, more in touch with the animal soul, replaces it, replaces the cultural operating system, something not determined by history and geography, but something writ in the language of the flesh itself. This is who you are. This is true nakedness. You are not naked when you take off your clothes. You still wear your religious assumptions, your prejudices, your fears, your illusions, your delusions. When you shed the cultural operating system, then essentially you stand naked before the inspection of your own psyche. Desmond Morris called it the naked ape. And it's from that position, a position outside the cultural operating system, that we can begin to ask real questions about what does it mean to be human? What kind of circumstance are we caught in? And what kind of structures, if any, can we put in place?
Welcome back to Open Eyes. My name is Ira Robinson, and I want to thank you guys for sticking around through that break with us. I had to take a little bit of an extended break there because we went a little bit over there. But we are back, and we are here tonight with M. Don Schorn. And Don is the author and inventor of the Elder Gods theory. And I love the theory. I love everything about it. Love what he brings to us. So, Don, we are back, and I'd like to get right back into things if you don't mind.
Oh, excellent. I would like to make just a quick correction, though. In our discussion that we just did before the break regarding dinosaurs, I was off on my my dates for dinosaurs. I was talking about 330 to 320 million years ago. That was indeed when the first reptiles emerged, but they were non-dinosaur reptiles. The true dinosaurs didn't emerge until about 250, 240 million years ago. So I just wanted to make that correction for your audience.
Gotcha. Okay. Not a problem. I have actually a couple of other questions that did come in from the chat room, if you don't mind going on ahead and answering them.
Oh, absolutely. Be my pleasure.
I have to get them up here. You guys got to deal with my blindness. It's just the way that it is. So, okay. Now, one of them I think you've kind of gotten into a little bit, but they were wondering, are there any similarities between the Bible and the Elder Gods theory?
With the exception of the common parables, stories and so forth that were changed drastically for use in the Bible, the answer would be no.
Okay. Another question that came in is, it is rumored that we've not returned to the moon because beings there are telling us not to come back. What are your thoughts, and is it maybe either of the elder gods types?
I absolutely, positively believe that NASA was told very strongly not to come back. They had 3 remaining Apollo missions to the moon, with those programs fully funded and paid, and they canceled them. And it is my strong belief that with the temporary exile of the ancient ones around 3150 BC, because of that world war that I indicated in the quick recap of the Elder Gods theory at the start of our interview this evening, that the bulk of the ancient ones and at least one of their motherships did leave our solar system for elsewhere until they were allowed to return, but at least one other mothership and scout ships were left within our solar system, and along with a few of the ancient ones and their helpers, and they relocated. In my belief, I don't have any proof whatsoever. They relocated to our moon. So yes, I do believe that it is the ancient ones on the moon, and I do believe that they indicated their displeasure with NASA that not to return.
So another,
I'm not sure what the ancient ones would have done.
One other question that might be related to this is, I don't know if you know anything about this, but there's the theory of the Black Knight satellite. And basically they were wondering if you know anything about the Black Knight satellite and if it was maybe a piece of Elder God's equipment or not.
I'm not familiar with that, but I would be surprised if we were not being monitored consistently by the ancient ones, either through scout ships, the occasional flying saucer or UFO that is seen, or by other means such as satellites, probes, things of this nature. So the concept of a black satellite seems very real and most possible to me.
The Black Knight, for your own edification and for anybody that might be listening that hasn't heard about this, it's a pretty fascinating little bit of history. Many years ago, before we started sending satellites up into the sky, we were doing some sky tracking and that kind of thing, and there was discovered a satellite that was apparently already up there that was on a polar orbit. And up until actually the 1990s, we didn't even have the capability of doing a polar orbit satellite ourselves. So here's this satellite. It was dark. It was sending out signals. It's broadcasting away. But basically, nobody knows where it comes from or who it belongs to or anything really about it, other than the fact that it was there, and it's been there apparently since way before our own space programs began.
I am fascinated by that. Ira, I have not heard about that Black Knight satellite before. That is most intriguing. I'm not surprised. There are indications of either a small mothership or some sort of a space station in orbit after 5200 BC. Around Earth by the younger ancient aliens, the outer planet human-like species of the bad faction that I referred to at that time. The Enuma Elish, as an example, the Akkadian and Sumerian epic creation myth specifically talks about 300 IgG in orbit around Earth. And again, that would either be a small mothership or some sort of a space station.
So it could be that one of these actually, that the Black Knight could be actually one of the IGGs.
Exactly. So it, although I don't see any major purpose of a satellite of that nature by the outer planet human-like species once they, if you will, took control of Earth after 3150 BC, or certainly grossly influenced Earth after 3150 BC with the departure of the Ancient Ones with their temporary exile from our planet. So the more likely scenario would be an Ancient Ones monitoring device or probe, whatever, in the case of the Black Knight satellite.
Okay. It does, I think, fit into your theory pretty well.
Very
it goes
much
right
so,
into it.
And I'm very intrigued by that. This is the first I've ever heard of a Black Knight satellite.
One of the interesting things, actually, earlier this year, oddly enough, Pepsi, the company Pepsi, put out a video on YouTube that was all about the Black Knight. It was actually called Black Knight Decoded, and in the video, it was kind of like almost, it was a storyline kind of video, but they were talking about the Anunnaki and their return, that the Anunnaki are going to be coming back and so on and so forth. It was really, really weird that Pepsi, of all things, would put this out. But yeah, so I don't know. It's just kind of one of those weird things. We talked about that quite a bit on our shows a few months ago. Now, another question was the idea of Atlantis. Did the Elder Gods destroy it, or is it possibly just them and they sank into the sky, or not a body of water, but it was more of like celestial waters, perhaps?
Well, the Ancient Ones certainly didn't destroy it. I have a very strong theory regarding Atlantis. As I indicated, the purpose of the Ancient Ones in their contact with emerging infant races was to educate, guide, and constrain, if you will, by regulated growth and being very careful on what was taught to these younger emerging inhabitants of these infant worlds. And for that reason, there are all sorts of indications of ancient learning academies throughout ancient texts, and those evolved later into mystery schools and colleges and so forth in the ancient world. In any case, the original learning academies set up by the Ancient Ones, where they plucked out select humans from their feral or very primitive villages, camps, and so forth, and relocated them to isolated spots, either high in the mountains, almost impossible to access except by air, or to isolated islands far enough away from shore where the more feral or savage natives could not reach those remote spots. And the concept of Atlantis, I've read and studied. I can't count the number of books concerning Atlantis in my research, and I believe all of them to be correct when they it's always I found Atlantis and it's here or it's there or it's wherever, be it the Azores, the Bahamas, Santeria, wherever. I believe all of them to be correct. In other words, I don't believe Atlantis was a specific location, but rather a function, and that function being the learning academy. And as environments changed or climatic changes occurred that Atlantis function had to be relocated from spot to spot over the millennia, and building a new institution for teaching civilization to the select human students. And once they were taught civilization, if you will, they were then released back to their native camps, villages, etc., so they could then teach their fellow brethren within their own camps. So Atlantis existed as far as a concept in my book, but not a specific location.
Now, what's fascinating is that enters into another theory that I heard some years back, and I'll paraphrase it a little bit because I don't remember the exactness of it, but essentially what they were talking about was the theory of with the Nazca lines, and that the Nazca lines, for instance, were used as a teaching tool by aliens, basically, to teach human beings here on the planet different concepts such as mathematics and art and that sort of thing, to elevate their civilization from these primitive things, and that was the purpose of it, basically to show them through symbology, basically, new ways of thinking, essentially.
That makes a lot of sense, Ira. And again, the Nazca lines truly have no value except through the air,
unless you think of the air with it, right? Exactly.
And it could be see what you can do if you open your mind, so to speak. In other words, a teaching aid, exactly as you said, Ira, for the natives undergoing the Atlantis function, for lack of better words, or the education, the civilizing education being received from the ancient ones.
Right. You can only do so much through.
Sense.
You can only do so much through language. The symbology of things actually is what brings out the most learning, at least to my concept of things. You can tell somebody something, but when they see it, and those, well, again, that whole adage, the picture's worth 1,000 words. I think that there is something exactly to that, because one symbol can have multiple hundreds of different meanings because it's all fractal in the way of thinking.
Not only that, but it can blossom into a number of offshoot thoughts also. It can be great inspiration, in other words.
Yep, absolutely. Now, speaking of other kind of concepts, art or that kind of thing, thinking, another question came in from Farrell in the chat room. They were wondering, since we know through science that we can hear actually the sounds of the planets in the solar system. So, they found the tones of each of the planets, and that they actually almost kind of sing to a point. But they were wondering basically if, with that in mind, can planets communicate with each other and maybe even across these vast distances of space into other solar systems and that kind of thing?
It would certainly seem likely, Ira. Going back to Pythagoras, when he was teaching college, he talked about the harmony of the spheres.
Yes.
And
which for a primitive civilization, quote unquote, and I use air quotes with that, literally, that was a pretty amazing concept.
Exactly.
Unless some kind of knowledge was handed down.
All of that advanced knowledge has to be imparted knowledge.
Yes, that's what I was meaning. Unless it was either handed down or he was shown something by somebody, how would they even have conceived of something like that?
Exactly. So that makes a lot of sense with the. Again, that's always been one of the big questions that I had with the far-flung vastness of our universe, and the ancient ones, after all of these billions upon billions of years, going out in every direction to carry out their cosmic order mandate. How in the heck do they all keep in touch? And I've entertained the concept of subspace conduits, arrays in space as gosh, I'm searching for the word relay stations, if you will, conveying messages over vast distances, and the harmony, the music of the spheres, as you know, in the planets themselves, they may have been able to harness that and use that as part of their communication means.
It would make sense because it would save them energy trying to figure out other methods of communication. If this is already there and existing, make use of it, you know?
Perfect thought, Ira. Absolutely.
One other question that came in then is the concept of giants. We know that there were much larger human beings in the past and probably still are today. You know, we have gigantism as a quote-unquote aberration in DNA and so on and so forth. How do they fit in with the Elder Gods theory?
I have an entire chapter in my first book, Elder Gods of Antiquity, concerning giants. And if we go back to what I had said earlier when I talked about the recombinant genetic engineering work, where the resultant outer planet human-like species was no longer like their old original species after the genetic engineering work, as well as the humans on Earth then were no longer anything like the outer planet human-like genes that they received in the recombinant genetic engineering work, or with their combined with the Pithecanthropus ape man, if you will, the Heidelberg man, Peking man, and so forth. The same holds true then with that original species. I have always theorized, I have absolutely no proof, but the original human-like species may have been giants, and or there were two, if you will, races of outer planet human-like species, one of a more normal size and one of gigantic size. And repressive genes carried forward with the genetic engineering recombinant work done by the ancient ones. Those recessive genes of gigantism reemerged every now and then in later, I'm assuming mostly outer planet human-like species descendants rather than the human descendants. And that would account for Goliath, the other giants mentioned in the Bible, the phenomenal amount of skeletal evidence that exists throughout our country, and of giant skeletal remains that have been found from basically the Midwest Mississippi River Valley to the desert Southwest, into Arizona. In other words, that entire range from the Missouri River Valley southwestward, although Minnesota always had a number of legends about giants and giant fossil finds within their state.
Well, my elders talk a lot about the giants here. I'm Native American, and I speak a lot about my past and the different things that the elders that I've talked to refer to, and they actually do refer sometimes to these giants that were here at times in the past, and that our people basically went to war against them way back. There used to be a trading kind of thing that went on for a while, but something basically occurred between the two, and there was a big war that ended up occurring, and we basically almost eradicated them essentially.
And I've run across many stories exactly along that same line, Ira, where the giants were continually pressed further westward and eventually southwestward Same type of deal where it was, they were always constantly attacked by regular humans.
So definitely a familiar story to you.
Oh, very much so.
Speaking about these kind of things, what do you think about the mound builders? Because that's one thing that even our people have lost to history, almost entirely. What do you think about the mound builders? What was kind of their purpose with stuff?
That is a fabulous question, Ira, and I wish I even had some sort of a remotely intelligent answer for. I have no idea. Again, much like the Nazca lines, the mounds only have value from the air.
Right.
Or many of the mounds only have value from the air. It is known that much like pyramids, there were at least two phases of construction to ancient mounds, and the oldest going back almost to 10,000 years ago. So roughly 8,000, 7,500 BC are some of the oldest mounds, and again they've never found any old 7,500 BC aged skeletal remains. They have found some 200, 400, 600-year-old skeletal remains in those very ancient mounds. So they were put in there later.
Way later, right? Exactly.
Exactly.
Well,
and then the later mounds that some Native American Indian tribes have some sort of ancient memory handed down to the descendants of trying to duplicate those olden mounds. So,
which we saw also in ancient Egypt too. The ancient Egyptians, they even spoke themselves about the fact that these pyramids that were there were not theirs, that they basically just cobbled together the technology from what they saw, but that they weren't the ones that built the original ones.
Exactly the case, and that's why I tried to compare the two with the mounds and the pyramids, because two different building periods.
Yep.
And two different groups of builders, with the latter always trying to copy the old original and never quite succeeding.
And you can definitely tell, because the workmanship, the stability of them, everything basically is worse than the originating ones, which you would think, if it was the standard methodology of doing things, the new ones would be even better. So,
boy, exactly, Ira, you hit it right on the head.
There's two other questions that I have, and we've got about 10 minutes that are left here. Well, actually less than that, about 7 or so minutes left on the show. I'd like to ask these questions, and you can answer either one, or if you think you can get both out, go for it. One of them would be, with the concept of the elder gods and this theory that you've put out, what does this mean for us now and in the future? And then the other question would be one that came in from the chat, basically, what is your favorite aspect of the elder gods theory? What is it that kind of gets you the most excited or fascinates you the most with it?
Interesting. That second one is most interesting. The first question, what is the importance, if you will, of the elder gods theory? And unless we understand history, our history, unless we understand what took place in the ancient past, we are going to eventually be faced with a very important choice once the temporary exile of the ancient ones expires and they return to Earth. Humanity will be given a choice, either to associate with the ancient ones and follow their cosmic order mandates, where our growth will be limited to our spiritual and moral capacity, if you will, but wide open. We could advance as far as we could if we're a model society or culture, or if we reject the association with the ancient ones and their cosmic order, they will leave us forever. And that the behind the scenes hidden outer planet human-like species that went underground, if you will, by 450 AD, will then have no concern about the ancient ones restricting their power, their control over our planet. And I do believe if we make the wrong choice, the ancient ones leave, the outer planet human-like species will come out from behind their hidden position, their behind-the-scenes power player roles, if you will, and basically set up exactly what their ancestors did. They will set themselves up as gods over humanity.
So they'd be the new gods, not the elder gods.
Yeah, it precisely. So it's terribly important to know where we came from, what happened, and the demonization that the outer planet human-like species have done with all of the distortions that they've done in our ancient records and so forth, demonizing the ancient ones. They have been trying for some 5,000 plus years now to make a negative impression upon humanity, so we will reject the ancient ones upon their return from temporary exile.
I would agree.
It's terribly important to understand where we came from, what happened, and what the importance of that upcoming choice will be, if it's in our lifetime or generation or two down the road yet. It's still terribly important to to humanity's future.
I agree 100%. I'm all about putting history into context and knowing that history is absolutely essential to learn, just even for the fact that if we don't know it, we're going to fall right back into the same kind of history again. And we don't need that anymore. We've been already through so many cycles of destruction. So we don't need to go through that kind of stuff again. We do have about maybe 3 minutes that are left here. I'd like to give you like any kind of information you'd like to get out, where people can find your books, your website information, email, whatever the case may be. What would you like to get out as final thoughts?
Well, again, it's been just an absolute pleasure. We've had such a fast-paced, most interesting discussion of a wide array of topics, and the individual aspects of my elder gods theory tonight. It's just been amazing. I really appreciate it, Ira. We have to do this again.
Absolutely,
I really
would love
enjoyed
it. I would love it.
As far as the books, again, the perhaps one of the easiest things to do is Google M. Don Schorn. And within the first page or two, there's just tons of topics that your listeners can click on and go to, including my author webpage on from my publisher Ozark Mountain Publishing. They're at Ozark MT. Mountain, the abbreviation for mountain, ozarkmt.com, or again my author page on Amazon.com, which will show all of my books, both e-books and print books, and again that'll show up on the first or second page of Googling M. Don Schorn, and again the same thing with my personal website. Where again all the books are available, and I do try to keep the links on the books to whatever source is the cheapest for any of the people that would be interested in reading the books. I want to make sure that the best price is out there. My publisher just stopped a really, really great discount that they were having on all of my books about a week ago, unfortunately. But again, the Googling the name probably is the easiest of all to lead you to a number of different interviews, information pages and so forth on that, Ira.
And your last name is spelled Schorn, for those of you that are not aware or needed to get the spelling for it. So,
exactly.
Awesome.
And it is the initial. The first initial is M as in Mars. So it'd be M. Don Schorn.
Awesome. Don, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. I so appreciate it. If you want to hang on for just a minute, I'll talk to you for a minute after the show is off the air.
Oh, super. I'll look forward to that. Again, thank you so much for this absolutely fascinating and entertaining evening.
It was my pleasure for sure. I definitely got a lot out of it myself. So thank you, Don.
All right. Take care, Ira.
So everybody, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. If you want to go to the archive of this show, it's going to be at openeyesnetwork.com/OE196. If you want to, it's also going to be archived on YouTube. I got to remember that. I've got to get used to this now. YouTube.com/C/Open Eyes Network is my YouTube channel. This show is going to be archived over there as well for you guys that want to catch the video portion of it. And hopefully you guys are taking advantage of that. It's pretty cool. I love it. So if you want to send me an email, send it to feedback@openeyesnetwork.com. I'm always available for anything that you guys have. If you want to be a guest on the show, let me know. And please, for God's sake, share out these shows. Let everybody know that you're listening to them, and let everybody know where they can find them, because it's really difficult to get them out there. So make sure that you guys are sharing. Like us on Facebook, like us on Twitter, and all these other things all over the place. We're at Open Eyes Network on both Facebook and Twitter. We're also on Google Plus, G Plus at Open Eyes Network. We're on Tumblr. We're everywhere you want to be, and then some. So we will be back on Monday, live, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Make sure you guys tune in. Stay tuned to my channel there on YouTube as well, because we're going to bring you some news and information over the weekend as well, just like we always do on all of the websites. So until Monday, until next time, keep safe out there and have fun. And thank you so much, as always, for listening. And make sure you stay tuned. Late Night in the Midlands is coming on right next. Thanks, everybody.